Hello, everyone. Welcome to Energy Transformation Week, day 6 video with Julia Sotas Mattis. And I just wanted to say that that this week has been really interesting in the way that this has been getting created. And we just spoke with Christine, and there are questions that I'll ask Julia that kind of piggyback off of Christine's video. So the way that this is getting created is pretty interesting. It's pretty neat. I'm happy with it. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Julia Sotas. She's an Access Consciousness certified facilitator. She's also a Talk to the Entities facilitator. And she's a wife of a dynamic facilitator and a stepmom of 3 and so much more. So Julia, I would love for you to just say hello to everyone and in your own words, kind of introduce yourself and tell everyone like what's the thing that lights you up and like gives you that like thing to do what you do in the world?
Awesome. I love that question. Hi guys, my name's Julia, and I've been facilitating access and doing access for about 8 years now, and it has just changed my life totally. Like literally, I don't know where I would be without it. I have so much fun using these tools, and the thing that lights me up, to answer your question, Tara, is it's watching people get happier and watching people having this sense of communion with each other and this peace in their world that they didn't have before they had these tools. And if I can create that anywhere, I'm so, like, that's all I want to be doing. It's so much fun.
That's awesome. So this series is all about people's transformation stories. You know, like there was this moment where, like, was there a moment, like, what I'm curious to know, like, what's your transformation kind of story? Like, what was it like for you growing up? Like, did you know that you were like really different? Like, did you have some interesting epiphany that said like, oh, my life's going to go in this direction now, and I'm gonna have this reality? Like what's all that for you?
Well, I have always been like such an existentialist. I've always, like, since I was born. I remember being 4 or 5 years old and walking around my house pretending my fingers were scissors and that there was a sheet of paper at the height of my waist, and I had to go through my house, and to get anywhere I had to cut the paper before I could go through with my little scissors. And I remember being near my kitchen table growing up on a farm in rural Canada, and I stopped as I was cutting my invisible paper, and I thought, is life supposed to be like, is it my destiny that I'm about to turn right? Or is it my choice that I'm about to turn right? And I was like, I was always thinking about this stuff, like, since I was like really little. And I just
like turn right directionally, or turn
no,
right,
I mean, like
I could, right.
Like I meant directionally. Like I could have
put
it in there too. And I was just like, I'm like, am I destined to turn, like, let's just say it was left, or like, is this my choice, or is there like a guiding force? And I was like this little tiny kid. So, and I mean, I'm sure that many of you out there have had different stories like that, where you had these like big thoughts or these big wonderings about like what's possible and what's out there and what runs us, and like, why am I here, and what am I going to do when I'm here? And in our bad times, like, am I even going to survive this place, or am I going to die because of the misery? And we're just so aware and so brilliant and so different, and you know, there's not very many people out in the world, you know, who have an interest in this, but we think that because we're interested in this stuff that everybody is looking at it and thinking about it. You know, I did some like intense spiritual journeys in my teenage years, read intense books and thought about intense things and asked intense questions. And I thought that like everybody was going through that in their teenage years.
Yeah.
And little did I know that there were people who were 60, 70, 80, 90 years old who had never asked those questions and never looked for a better life or never looked for a better way of doing things. And I guess I just came in like this, as is probably anybody listening to this Google Hangout. It's like, you wouldn't be here if you weren't really, really looking at something different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And yeah, I'm sure, like, I know, like, for me, I used to run around with like I used to run around what I thought was thinking in terms of we, and being like, we're going to go over here, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to go over here. And it was like this, always had like a group with me.
Yeah.
That wasn't really, but like, you know, yeah, yeah. And at some point I realized that I remember being like 13 or something, like some age where I was like, I'm thinking in terms of we, like, that's weird. And I was like, I don't think I could do this anymore. And I cut it all off. Like, I started correcting myself to be like, like,
really?
Yeah. And then like further down the road, it's like, here we are. The video that changed my life was, you know, I had this crazy, an interesting, like breakdown. And I kept hearing, you should kill yourself. You should kill yourself. When everyone was treating me like I was crazy, I stumbled upon this video, and it was Shannon O'Hara. And she was like, if something says you in your head, that's not you. And it was just like, oh my God, like that wasn't me. Oh my God. Like, it was like, oh, you know, and it changed the entire trajectory of my world.
Wow.
And like, I know you're a Talk to the Entities facilitator, and you actually, we live streamed you in and cleared the whole island of Manhattan of entities earlier, you know, last year in 2018. And I'm curious to know, like, how and when did it hit you that you had the capacities with entities? Oh.
That's a good question, because it's kind of been different phases. When I was a little girl, I definitely could perceive ghosts really strongly. I didn't like getting up in the night to go to the bathroom because there was a man who lived behind my piano. And I was lucky because I was empowered, and my mom like took me to a medium to talk about it, and like was, thought that was really cool and was really supportive of me and never questioned me. So that really helped. I never had that beaten out of me like most of us do. Yeah. So I don't really see entities. I perceive them out of the corners of my eyes, but we all have the ability to perceive entities. We all have the ability to know what's around us. It's not just that special people get that. But for me, I really started talking to entities only about a year ago, even less than a year, maybe 8 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And
you're really like thorough in your facilitations. Like, I don't, on like every time I've tuned into your classes, you're always, the way that you speak, for me, it's so clear, and I have so many aha moments. I'm just like, oh, but it like, I was like, oh, okay. I would have guessed or assumed, I guess, that you were probably like working with entities like for years, you know?
No, I just started.
That's awesome.
My husband inspired me. He's a Talk to the Entities facilitator. You know him well, Tara. And he's been doing it for about 2.5 years. And he started doing it, and he stopped being depressed and going into these places of sort of intense anger, because, you know, he's from New Jersey, he's Italian, half Puerto Rican. I mean, he's a redhead. I mean, he's like triply, quadruply screwed. And so like, you know, he can be really hot-headed and but also like really hard on himself, and he used to be. And I watched him facilitating entities and working with entities, and you know, month after month, he would get happier and happier. And after about a year, he didn't go into those dark places anymore, and he didn't make himself wrong for different things, but he made a real commitment to the entity world. He really, really worked with them, you know, probably 3 days a week. He was actually having times in his day when he was sitting down and communicating with them. He was helping other people communicate with them and clear them. And I mean, I just watched his whole life change, and I was so happy to see it. And I was like, I would like to have that, because
Nice.
it's actually really different than all the other tools of access consciousness. So for those of you who don't know, talk to the entities. Oh, and I'm even representing the ghosts today.
Oh my God. Oh. Oh.
So yeah, so I just watched how happy he got, and I wanted that. And talk to the entities is a subtopic of a bigger body of work called access consciousness. And access consciousness is just this amazing body of work that just, it gives you peace and freedom and more ease with everything in your life. And it really has for me. And then talk to the entities, to me, is like what really helps mental illness. And really, really can clear and change mental illness, depression, suicide.
So I have a question for you. Like, you know, what is it like for you to like open people up to like their capacities with entities? And this is a two-part question, because there's that, but then I'm also curious to hear, like, because you're traveling the world helping people like transform their lives, and it's like that's changing the whole planet, and it's not something that most people wake up every day and be like, I'm gonna go do this, you know, and work on myself to help, you know, so doing that work for yourself, right? And then like to go out and have that inspiration and desire to change it, like the world, right? What is that like for you? Like, what's that inspiration piece?
Gosh, I mean, I just know that if I didn't do this, I would not. I mean, I can't not do it. That's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't do it, I would probably be on a whole bunch of heavy medication, totally depressed. I mean, maybe like suicidal. I mean, I've had a lot of depression, and all of it was entity awareness. And working with, I mean, I love working with the entities themselves, because what happens is when you, and I'll get to the piece about like working with people, but when you're talking to an entity, the way that it works is you get what they're saying by what you're feeling. So that's actually how they talk to you. They give you feelings. And if you don't realize that your feelings are them talking to you, you're going to think that your feelings are real. And that's where people's lives get really difficult. So, and it also makes the ghosts or the entities who are trying to communicate with you, when you're not understanding that those feelings are their way of talking to you, it's really difficult for them too, because they're not being understood. And they have so much to give to us. They have so much to say to us. And so many of them are just dying to be cleared and to be moved on. But they can't move on without our facilitation and empowerment. So, like, for example, when I did my first Talk to the Entity facilitator training class in Paris, that first night, I couldn't really sleep. And so I was kind of getting a little bit depressed and I was anxious, and I was kind of doing an insomnia thing. And I realized, oh, I have to look at what entities I'm aware of. So I close my
Oh.
eyes, and the way that this shows up for me is I close my eyes, I have to put my barriers down and become very vulnerable, because we have to be very vulnerable to access the entity realm.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you have your barriers and your walls up, you're not going to hear them. Okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
So
What about people when they're like crying and really really upset over their like hurt one or their loved one that has crossed over? Like is it better to be more, I guess, joyful or try not to go into like those dark places with depression and stuff or like what
when you're with
like
somebody,
when you're communicating with entities, say like if you would like to receive a message from someone and and you're more depressed than you are like in a more higher state of vibration, like what is that? I don't know, can they get through, like what would you
well,
say is
yeah,
like?
it doesn't really matter what kind of space you're in. It just matters
Yeah,
whether you're open, like you're asking what they're trying to say to you rather than ignoring them.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I put my barriers down and was what's going on here? And so my awareness started to like sort of drift from place to place, and it drifted to the town where my grandparents lived. And
Oh wow.
my grandpa was, when he was alive, he went through a lot of abuse and became a very abusive man, and was very
Mhm.
abusive to my grandma and to his kids. He never abused my mom specifically, because when he was a young man, he got his arm chopped off, and my
Oh wow.
mom was 2 or 3 years old, and she went up to him and hugged him. Everybody else was scared of him, and she went up to him as a baby and like was with him, and he never abused her. She was the only one that he never abused
Mm.
physically. And
Yeah.
so, but like he was an amazing being, an amazing man. He was super, super innovative and into all kinds of alternative health and alternative everything that he could get his hands on.
Mhm.
But yet he was still an alcoholic and still was abusive. And I didn't like being around him when he was alive. But I always had this sense that he was a very magical person at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So my mind drifted to his town, and then he came front and center. Like he
Wow.
was right there in front of me. And I started bawling. And it was like this, but the crying wasn't me, it was him. It was this intense relief of just letting go of him not being able to hear me for years and years and years and years and years, and nobody could hear him. And when he died, a few nights after he died, he threw pots and pans around my grandma's kitchen, trying to get
Oh
her to
wow.
hear him.
Yeah.
And there were like pots and pans, and she like got up and she's like, oh, but she didn't have the tools of talk to the entities. So I was the first person he could actually get in touch with, and he died 13 years prior to this. He actually killed
Yeah.
himself. He took his own life.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, at 71, he killed himself. So basically, he was so grateful. He was so happy. He was so relieved. And he was a totally different person than when he died. And
Mm.
he let me know that he had been going to access classes with me from the beginning, that it was the thing that he was searching for when he had a body that he couldn't find when he had a body, but finally he found it through me after he died. And he was just this
Yeah.
totally different. He was totally spacious and at peace, and just this beautiful, beautiful being. And so now he's like with me all the time, and he is such a contribution to my life. And oh, my mom sent me some pictures of him the other day as a young man, and I just started crying because just the communion that him and I have now that we never had when he was alive and that we never had before I started using these tools is just so awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that these are like some of the possibilities that are available when you open up to the world of entities.
Exactly.
And I want to know what I like is that
It's 6 o'clock.
like what I like is that like I know it's 6 o'clock. um, they can contribute so much to you, and I'm curious to can you tell people like it's like I know when I first started learning this, I was scared and kind of freaked out by it, and it took me a while to get into it. But I know that they can gift you things and they can be such a contribution as well. What are some ways that you've heard or experienced yourself that they've contributed?
That's a good question. I mean, oh gosh. They've contributed to me in so many ways. I can't even think of like the best one. I mean, there's an energy in my world that wasn't there before. There's knowing, and there's this sense that I'm part of the universe and I'm part of these beings and their world, and that they have somebody to look to that's actually going to be a mouthpiece for them, that's actually going to be there to have their back and clear them and do whatever they need. Because I mean, in our reality, you're considered insane if you are talking to entities, talking to ghosts. And I love talk to the entities because it cuts out all the metaphysical stuff, all the bullshit, all the spirituality, and it's literally just pragmatic tools to talk to entities. And that's such a gift because all of that other stuff gets in the way of clearly delivering a message. A lot of people who do this stuff or are mediums and stuff, I'm playing with my headphones. A lot of people who do this stuff are really, really trying to do it to make themselves look good and trying to do it to be like, ooh, I see a ghost, I see a man, and trying to prove that they're so psychic. And when you do talk to the entities, you're empowered to know you don't have to prove you're psychic. You're extremely psychic. And everything that you hear, you're not crazy for hearing. It's all awareness. And so I think that they have just contributed so much to me, just in terms of knowing and receiving money and different things like that. You know, I get paid to facilitate. I get paid to teach these classes and help people have better, easier lives.
That's awesome. Yeah, sometimes when I find like $10 bill on the floor, like money on the ground, I always say like, "Thank you guys." Like I'm like, "Thank you so much," and I'm like, "That's them."
That's cool. Totally.
So I kind of want to move a little bit away from the entities,
Sure.
but I know you're just so like, for me personally, it was like there was just so much clarity in the way that you speak of the benefits of talking to entities. I just wanted to like touch in on that. But like now you also facilitate like a lot of different topics, and like so from business to now to like parenting, and like my most recent experience with you was with on the topic of money. And we did the money workbook over Christmas, which I thought was really cool because you have a lot of like anecdotes and different things, and there's a class that you've done. I haven't done it, but I really would like to. Organizing your finances.
Yes.
And I mean, so let me ask you a question. Like, what is your take on like energetics? Because I get that this is like a really like a gift in your world. And it's like, what is your take on like energetics with money? And like, what inspires you to take on that topic with people?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think the first thing is that I just saw that people had no idea what they were doing and had a lot of trouble with it. You know, we're not taught as kids to be very empowered with money. We're taught that it's wrong, it's bad, it's evil, it's awful, all those sorts of things. And so I just wanted to like maybe see if anybody was willing to be empowered and have some different tools. And so, you know, what we did was we looked at, you know, how do you keep your receipts? How do you keep your books? Where are your credit cards? How are you, you know, paying those off if you have debts? You know, what is your mortgage? How do you pay your mortgage? Like all of those things, because they have to be organized and ooh, sounded like a ghost. So basically, it's just like there's so much unconsciousness in that area, and when we're willing to actually like infuse it with the consciousness and creation that's possible, it's like, I don't know, it's just a different world. But we just sort of assume that it has to be a difficult topic, and it really doesn't.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool. I just really wanted to touch on that because there is a brilliance there,
well,
and like
most of us hate money. You know, most people hate money, and
what mind if I cut in a little bit?
Please.
Like, what's your favorite like beginner like tool that if someone was watching this and they were just like, oh my God, like, you mean I can change something with money, with energy? Like, what's like a little beginner tool?
Well, this is a board that sits in my office. Money come. So we have to ask for money if we're going to have it. We have to ask for money to come into our lives. So what you want to do is you want to say 20 times a day, money come, 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 money come. There, that's 20 times. And because we actually push money out when we judge it, and we can't receive money unless we ask for it. And I've seen people use this tool and receive money from the weirdest places, like winning money in a casino, finding an inheritance that they did not even realize they were getting, all kinds of different things.
That's awesome. So we're getting close to our 30-minute mark. And so I feel like we should probably kind of start wrapping up. Sometimes I go over, but it's like 6:07, and I know you have a call at like 6:15. So I just want to know, like, how can people get in touch with you, and like, what are your website links? I'll go ahead and put them around this video so people can get more of you.
Awesome. Yeah. So my website's just juliasotas.com. It's my name, JuliaSotas.com. And I have all kinds of classes on there. There's free resources, classes you can buy. My blog is on there. There's videos in the blog, all kinds of different things. And I have a YouTube channel that has like something like 200 videos on it. So there's a lot. You could watch hours of YouTube videos.
That's awesome. Julia Facilitation on YouTube for free. So this is the question that I ask every single person that comes on to Energy Transformation Week. And I'm not looking for any specific kind of an answer. It's just the question that I ask. And I'm curious to know, if you imagine that the younger you is watching this video, like the you that was making the choice to take the path of like the facilitator, like in the beginning of all of that, what would you say to her as for encouragement as the being that you are today?
I would say have way more fun and stop worrying about all the things that you worry about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Julia, I'm so grateful that you had, carved out the time to do this with me. And I I'm grateful. I'm just grateful to know you. And also, if there's anything that you would like to say before I announce the next video and close this out, you have the floor if you'd like to speak to anybody out
Thanks.
there.
No, I'm so grateful to everybody watching. If you made it this far in the video, you are weird and wonderful and wild, and just please choose for you. Don't choose for others.
Wow. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Julia Sotas Mattis. And for tomorrow's video, tomorrow, January 17th, I will be interviewing the lovely Curry Glassell, and that's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're on the watch page, just go ahead and refresh your screen at that time. And if you're watching the videos in the future, just head on over to the next video. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you,
Awesome.
Julia. All right. Bye-bye. Hang on,
Thanks,
stay on for just a
Tara.
second. Wait.